Hey, it is October 28th, 2015, and I'm Fiona Skye. Today, in our NaNoWriMo pre-planning video diary thing, we will be talking about settings and how important they are to your book. So, the first thing you need to do is figure out whether or not you need to go into a full-blown world building session, or if you can get away with just doing a little bit of setting work. If you do decide to do world building, then you'll definitely want to watch tomorrow's video, which is where we get into, well, world building, obviously. So, if you're writing a book that's not a fantasy or sci-fi, that's just set in the normal world, the first thing you'll probably want to think about is what time period is your book set in. Is it modern? Is it 1980s? Is it early 18th century, Victorian era, biblical times, whatever? You need to nail that down. And then from there, you need to think about the physical location of your books. Now, probably the easiest thing for you to do here is to set your book in a place that you are very familiar with. If you live in Tacoma, have your book set in Tacoma. If you live in Arizona, have it set in Tucson or Phoenix or Flagstaff. Wherever you live, or if it's a place that you're intimately familiar with because you've lived there before, you go there on vacation every year, whatever. Think about setting your book there. If, however, you want to set your book in London or Paris or Mykonos in the Greek Isles, then you might want to think about using Google Maps Street View or Google Earth. I honestly think that both of these programs were written for writers who want to set their books in places they've never been, but still want to be able to capture a little bit of the local flavor. Just go to Google Maps Street View. If you want to set your book in London, then pick a neighborhood like Chelsea or Kensington Gardens or Hyde Park and just tool around through the street view. Look at housing, architecture, street names, all that kind of stuff, and write that down, make little notes of it. Something else that's very important to think about is the time of year. You know, spring, summer, fall, winter, rainy season, dry season, whatever. And make it appropriate to your story. There's nothing more disconcerting than a horror film that's set in Paris in April, when the earth is very alive and flowers are blooming and people are making out in the streets. That doesn't really lend itself to a good horror story. If, on the other hand, you want to have your horror movie set in the moors of Yorkshire in the middle of the fall, that would be perfect. Alright, so you've got your time period, your physical geographical location, and the time of year all set down. Now, the next thing you should do is to think about each and every scene that you'll be writing in your book and pick an appropriate setting. The weather and the time of day should also definitely come into consideration when setting out your setting. Also, maybe write a little bit about your character's feelings about the particular location. If you have a scene set in a diner that your character's mum used to bring him to, he obviously, well, not obviously, I guess, he may have very strong positive feelings towards it because, you know, he loved his mum and it was a special time for them when they went to this diner. Or conversely, he may hate it because it was the place where his mum told him that she was divorcing his father and leaving and running off to become a showgirl in Las Vegas. So, alright, so you've got all that set and it's time to actually start writing your scene. you want your setting to be so realistic, so concrete, that it actually becomes sort of another character in your book. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to make sure that you work in one example of each of the 5 senses in your description of the setting. Whatever your characters can see, touch, hear, smell, and even taste will just add another layer of depth to your writing and really suck your readers in, which is, exactly what you want to do. So that's it on settings. If you've got questions or comments, of course you are more than welcome to leave them in the section below, and come back for actual world building for fantasy writers tomorrow. Maybe I've never actually written anything science fiction-y. I don't read it that much, but hopefully the tips and hints that I can give you about fantasy world building can also bridge the gap into science fiction. Thanks for watching. Cheers.